The morning Adunni was born under a full moon, rough patches covered her skin like continents on a map, discolored and strange, resembling the dreaded leprosy that everyone feared. The midwives stepped back, whispering prayers of protection. Her parents, Akintunde the farmer and Folashade the weaver, looked at their daughter and saw only love. They named her Adunni, meaning sweet one, hoping the name would shield her from the cruelty they knew was coming. In the heart of Abaddon, where palm trees swayed and the market buzzed with life, Adunni grew up in the shadows. From the moment she could walk, children ran from her screaming, "Leprosy! Leprosy!" Mothers pulled their babies away when she passed. Even the elders whispered that she carried a curse from angry ancestors. Adunni was forbidden from touching fruit at the market. She could not fetch water with other girls. She could not dance at festivals or sit near the fire during storytelling nights. The villagers believed that one touch from her would spread the curse like wildfire. But what none of them knew, what they could never imagine in their fear and ignorance, was that Adunni carried something far more powerful than any curse. She carried a gift so rare, so extraordinary, that the spirits themselves watched over her with wonder. Adunni's gift was discovered when she was only 7 years old. Her younger brother Taiwo had fallen from a mango tree, his arm twisted and broken. He screamed in pain, tears streaming down his face. Their mother ran to fetch the village healer, but Adunni, driven by love, reached out and touched Taiwo's injured arm. What happened next changed everything. Taiwo's cries stopped. His arm straightened, the bone mending before their eyes. But Adunni collapsed, her skin erupting with new patches, darker and rougher than before. She had absorbed his pain, his injury, leaving him completely healed. Her parents were terrified and amazed. They made her promise never to tell anyone, never to use her gift in public. They feared the village would either kill her as a witch or use her until she died from absorbing too many illnesses. So Adunni kept silent. She lived each day watching people suffer from diseases and injuries she could heal with a single touch. She saw children crying from fevers, old men limping from broken bones, women dying slowly from mysterious illnesses, and she could do nothing. Her heart broke a little more each day. In the same village lived 3 sisters who were everything Adunni was not. Beezy, Kahind, and Ao were the chief's daughters, born with smooth skin like polished mahogany, bright eyes that sparkled like stars, and voices that sang like morning birds. Everyone loved them. Everyone praised them. Young men brought them gifts. Old women blessed them in the streets. They wore the finest wrappers, ate the best food, and walked through the village like royalty. But beneath their beauty lived something ugly. They had noticed something about Adunni that bothered them deeply. Despite her appearance, despite the patches on her skin, there was something in Adunni's eyes that drew certain people to her. A wisdom, a kindness, a light that beauty alone could never create. A few kind souls in the village would sometimes smile at Adunni. An old woman once gave her a mango. A little boy waved at her from across the road. These small gestures enraged the 3 sisters. How dare anyone show kindness to that cursed girl while they, the beautiful ones, stood nearby? The cruelty began small. Beezy would bump into Adunni at the market, making her drop her basket. Kahind would laugh loudly whenever Adunni walked past, pointing at her skin. Ao would throw stones, not big enough to truly hurt, but enough to remind Adunni that she was unwanted. But as months passed, the cruelty grew. They started a campaign throughout the village, going from house to house, whispering poison into ears already filled with fear. "She will curse our crops," Beezy would say, her voice dripping with false concern. "Children have been falling sick more often since she walks our streets," Kahind would add, shaking her head sadly. "We should send her away before something terrible happens," Ao would conclude, her eyes wide with manufactured worry. The villagers listened. Fear is a powerful weapon, and the sisters wielded it expertly. Soon, there was talk of banishing Adunni completely. Some suggested she should be sent to live in the forbidden forest where cursed people belonged. Adunni heard the whispers. She saw the growing hatred in people's eyes, but she said nothing. News arrived one bright morning that made the entire village buzz with excitement. Prince Akintunde from a neighboring kingdom of Oyo would visit Abaddon for the annual harvest festival. More importantly, he was searching for a bride. The prince was known throughout the land as kind, wise, and handsome. Every unmarried girl in Abaddon dreamed of catching his eye. But none dreamed harder than Beezy, Kahine, and Ao. "One of us will surely become his wife," Beezy declared, admiring herself in a polished bronze mirror. "Of course," Kahine agreed, braiding her hair with golden thread. "We are the most beautiful girls in all of Abaddon. The prince will take one look at us and forget every other woman exists," Ao added confidently. They began preparations immediately, spending their father's money on the finest wrappers, the sweetest perfumes, and the most elaborate jewelry. But then Ao had an idea, a cruel, wicked idea that made her sisters smile with malicious delight. "What if," she said slowly, "we bring Adunni to the festival with us?" Her sisters looked at her in confusion. Why would they want that cursed girl anywhere near them during such an important event? Ao's smile widened. "Think about it. If Adunni stand beside us, we will look even more beautiful by comparison. The prince will see her ugly skin and diseased appearance, and then he will see us radiant and perfect. We will shine even brighter next to her darkness." The sisters clapped their hands in delight. It was perfect. It was cruel. It was exactly what they wanted. The next day, they approached Adunni with false smiles and honeyed words. She was drawing water from the well, careful not to let her bucket touch anyone else's. "Adunni," Beezy called out sweetly, "we have been thinking about you." Adunni looked up, surprised and suspicious. The sisters had never spoken to her kindly before. "We know the village has not been fair to you," Kahine continued, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "We want to make amends. We would like you to help us prepare for the festival." Ao added, "Please, let's be friends." Adunni wanted to refuse. Every instinct told her not to trust these girls who had made her life miserable. But she was also lonely, desperately lonely. The idea of friendship, even false friendship, tempted her wounded heart. "Why now?" Adunni asked quietly. "You have never been kind to me before." "We were wrong," Beezy said, reaching out as if to touch Adunni's hand before pulling back. "We let fear control us. But we see now that you are just a girl like us, deserving of kindness." The lies flowed smoothly from their tongues. They had practiced this performance well. "Help us gather flowers for the festival decorations," Kahine urged. "Come with us to the river tomorrow morning. It will be fun, just us girls together." Adunni looked at their faces, searching for truth. She wanted so badly to believe them. She wanted so badly to belong. Finally, she nodded. "I will come." The sisters smiled, but their eyes remained cold as river stones. They had her exactly where they wanted her. That night, Adunni's mother noticed her daughter's unusual excitement and felt a chill run down her spine. What Adunni did not know was that the river they planned to visit was no ordinary river. It was called Odo Alafia, the River of Peace, but peace was not what it offered to everyone. The river was guarded by a powerful water spirit named Yamoja, ancient and mysterious. Local legend spoke of her beauty and her wrath in equal measure. She demanded respect, demanded offerings, and most importantly, she demanded sacrifice. The sisters had learned from whispers and old stories that Yamoja would grant protection to those who gave her what she truly desired. The plan was simple and wicked. They would push Adunni into the river, let Yamoja take her as an offering, and return to the village as heroes who had finally rid Abaddon of its cursed girl. Morning came with golden light and singing birds. Adunni woke early, her heart lighter than it had been in years. She dressed in her cleanest wrapper and helped her mother prepare breakfast, humming softly. "Where are you going so early?" her father asked, noticing her unusual cheerfulness. "To the river with Beezy, Kahine, and Ao," Adunni replied. "We are gathering flowers for the festival." Her parents exchanged worried glances. They did not trust the chief's daughters, but they also did not want to crush their daughter's rare moment of happiness. "Be careful," her mother said, hugging her tightly. "Come home before the sun reaches its peak." "I will, Mama," Adunni promised, not knowing she was making a promise she would not be able to keep. The sisters were already waiting at the village edge, baskets in hand, smiles on faces. They greeted Adunni warmly, linking arms with her as if they had been friends forever. As they walked toward the river, they chatted and laughed, and for a brief moment, Adunni let herself believe this was real. The path was long and winding. As they walked deeper into the forest, the trees grew thicker, the shadows longer. Birds stopped singing. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Adunni felt a change in the air, a heaviness that pressed against her chest. "How much farther?" she asked, noticing how quiet the sisters had become. "Just ahead," Ao replied, her voice no longer sweet. They emerged into a clearing where the river flowed, dark and deep. The water was unusually still, like glass, reflecting the cloudy sky above. Adunni had never seen water so perfectly calm. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "This is Odo Alafia," Beezy announced. "The flowers grow on the other side. We need to cross." But there was no bridge, no stones to step on, just deep, dark water. "How do we cross?" Adunni asked. The sisters exchanged glances, their masks beginning to slip. Kahine smiled, but it was not a kind smile anymore. "You first, Adunni," she said. "You are our guest." Adunni stepped closer to the water's edge, peering into the depths. Something felt wrong. The silence was too complete, the water too still. Then she felt hands on her back. Strong hands. Pushing hands. Adunni fell forward. Her scream cut short as she hit the cold water. The river swallowed her whole, pulling her down into darkness. She thrashed, trying to swim, but the water was thick, almost alive, wrapping around her limbs like ropes. Above, she heard the sisters laughing. Their true voices finally revealed, cruel and heartless. "Goodbye, curse girl," Ao shouted. "Yamoja, take our offering." Beezy called out. "The village is finally free." Kahine added. Their laughter faded as they ran back toward the village, leaving Adunni to drown alone. But something strange happened. As Adunni sank deeper, the panic left her. The water that felt like it was strangling her suddenly felt gentle, almost welcoming. A light appeared below, soft and golden, growing brighter as she descended. Then she saw her, a woman beautiful beyond words, with skin like midnight and eyes like stars. Her hair flowed like the water itself, long and silver. She wore nothing but the river, and the river wore her like a crown. Yamoja, the water spirit, the guardian of Odo Alafia. Adunni stopped struggling. There was no point. If she was meant to die here, then she would die. But Yamoja did not look angry. She looked curious, her ancient eyes studying Adunni with interest. She reached out and touched Adunni's face, her fingers cool and gentle. "You are marked," Yamoja said, her voice like water over stones. Not with a curse, but with a gift. Adunni could somehow breathe underwater, could somehow hear and speak. Magic surrounded them like a protective bubble. "You know," Adunni whispered, tears mixing with river water. "I know everything that happens in my waters and beyond." Yamoja replied, "I have watched you since you were born. I have seen your kindness, your sacrifice, your pain. I have seen how you heal others while hurting yourself." The spirit circled Adunni slowly, considering. "Those girls who pushed you, they thought they were feeding me a sacrifice. But they do not understand. I do not want cruelty. I want purity. And you, child, are the purest soul I have encountered in 100 years." Adunni did not know what to say. She had expected death, not conversation, not understanding. "I will give you a choice," Yamoja continued. "A gift for a gift, a trade for a trade." Yamoja waved her hand, and the water around them shimmered. Images appeared, showing 2 different paths, 2 different futures. "In the first path," the spirit explained, "I give you perfect beauty, smooth skin like polished wood, a face that stops hearts. You will return to your village transformed. No one will fear you anymore. Everyone will love you, want you, worship you." The image showed Adunni walking through a Badon with flawless skin, people bowing and smiling, offering her gifts and praise. But Yamoja continued, her voice growing serious. "You will lose your healing gift. That power will be gone forever. You will be beautiful but ordinary. love for your appearance, but nothing more. The second image appeared, and Adunni's breath caught. In the second path, I enhance your gift, make it stronger, more powerful. You will be able to heal not just injuries, but diseases that no medicine can cure. You will save lives that were meant to end. But your appearance will worsen. The patches will spread. People will fear you even more. Adunni stared at both images, her heart torn between two impossible choices: to be accepted and loved, or to help and heal, to finally belong, or to remain an outcast forever. She thought about the children who had run from her, screaming. She thought about the mothers who pulled their babies away. She thought about the lonely nights, the silent days, the constant rejection. Who wouldn't want to be beautiful? Who wouldn't want to be loved? But then she thought about Taiwo's healed arm. She thought about all the people she had watched suffer, people she could have helped if only she had been allowed. She thought about the gift the spirits had given her, a gift she had not chosen but had been trusted with. And she understood, finally, what true sacrifice meant. Not giving up something you don't want, but giving up the thing you want most in the world for something greater than yourself. Adunni closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face, and made her choice. I choose the gift, she whispered, her voice breaking. I choose to heal. Yamoja's face broke into a radiant smile. I knew you would. That is why you are worthy. The spirit placed both hands on Adunni's shoulders. Power flowed through the touch, ancient and pure. Adunni gasped as her gift expanded, deepened, became something more than it had ever been. You will be able to heal anything now, Yamoja explained as light swirled around them. Broken bones, burning fevers, poisoned blood, wasting diseases. Even ailments that have no name. Your touch will bring life back from the edge of death. The power settled into Adunni's bones, her blood, her very soul. She could feel it humming beneath her skin, warm and ready. But remember, Yamoja warned, her expression growing serious, every healing will cost you. Your appearance will worsen with each use. The patches will spread. The discoloration will deepen. People will fear you even more than before. I understand, Adunni replied, her voice steady despite her fear. There is one more thing, the spirit added. I am placing protection on you. No one can harm you physically. No weapon will cut you. No poison will affect you. You are under my guardianship now. Yamoja touched Adunni's forehead, leaving a mark invisible to normal eyes but clear to those with spiritual sight. Now go, the spirit said. Return to your village. Your true purpose awaits. The water swirled, lifting Adunni up, carrying her to the surface. She emerged on the riverbank, gasping and dripping, very much alive. Meanwhile, back in Abaddon, the three sisters had returned from the river with baskets empty of flowers, but full of lies. They ran through the village, their faces painted with false tears and manufactured horror. Terrible news. Beezy cried, clutching the chief's arm. Adunni has drowned in the river. We tried to save her. Kehine sobbed convincingly, but the current was too strong. She fell in while reaching for flowers. Ao added, her voice breaking with pretend grief. The villagers gathered, shocked by the news. Some whispered that it was probably for the best, that the cursed girl was finally gone. Others felt a pang of guilt for how they had treated her. Adunni's parents heard the news and collapsed. Their daughter, their only daughter, was dead. Their grief was real, sharp, and devastating. Folashade wailed. Akintunde could not speak, his voice stolen by sorrow. The chief, convinced by his daughter's performance, declared that Adunni had died a tragic but perhaps fated death. The village began preparing for funeral rites, gathering to mourn a girl they had never truly valued while she lived. But that evening, as the sun began to set, something impossible happened. Adunni walked into the village, alive and dripping with river water. The villagers froze, their mourning turning to shock, then fear. Some screamed. Others fell to their knees, believing they were seeing a ghost. But Adunni was no ghost. She was very much alive, though changed. The patches on her skin had indeed spread, darker and rougher than before, just as Yamoja had warned. Her appearance was more frightening now, more otherworldly. The three sisters saw her first and went pale. How was this possible? They had watched her sink beneath the water. They had heard her scream. How had she survived? Adunni? Her mother whispered, afraid to believe her eyes. It's me, Mama, Adunni replied, her voice stronger than it had ever been. Her parents ran to her, embracing her despite the water soaking their clothes, despite the gasps from the villagers. They did not care what anyone thought. Their daughter was alive. But before Adunni could explain what had happened at the river, a commotion erupted from the other side of the village. The prince had arrived early. Prince Akintunde rode into Ibadan on a magnificent horse, accompanied by royal guards and advisors. He was indeed handsome, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. But those close to him noticed something others missed. The prince moved slowly. His smile, though genuine, looked tired. His skin had a grayish tint beneath the rich brown. The prince was dying. He had been sick for months, growing weaker each day. His father, the king, had consulted every healer in Oyo, every medicine man in neighboring villages, even spiritual priests from distant lands. Nothing worked. The mysterious wasting disease consumed him slowly but surely. The king, desperate and heartbroken, had sent his son on this journey, hoping that perhaps a new beginning with a bride might give him reason to fight the illness. It was a father's desperate hope, nothing more. The prince knew the truth. He was dying. But he had agreed to this journey because he did not want to die in his bed, pitted and helpless. He wanted to live what remained of his life meeting people, seeing new places, perhaps finding one last moment of joy. The Ibadan villagers welcomed him with music and dancing, completely unaware of his condition. The chief rushed forward to greet him, his three daughters positioned perfectly behind him, radiant in their finest wrappers and jewelry. Your Highness, the chief said, bowing deeply, Ibadan welcomes you with great honor. May I present my daughters Bizi, Kahin, and Ao. The sisters stepped forward, their rehearsed smiles in place, their movements graceful and calculated. They were beauty perfected, performance mastered. Prince Akintunde looked at them politely and nodded. They were indeed beautiful, but something about their smiles felt hollow to him. In his months of facing death, he had learned to see beyond surfaces, to recognize genuine kindness from practiced charm. Thank you for your warm welcome, the prince replied, his voice weak but courteous. The festival preparations continued, but that night, alone in the guest house prepared for him, Prince Akintunde collapsed. His guards found him on the floor, unconscious, barely breathing. The illness had accelerated. Death was coming faster than expected. News of the prince's collapse spread through Ibadan like wildfire. The chief was horrified. The villagers panicked. This was a disaster. If the prince died in their village, there would be consequences, perhaps even war. Fetch the healer, someone shouted. The village healer, an old man named Akintunde, examined the prince and shook his head gravely. This is beyond my skill. I have never seen illness like this. The prince is dying, and there is nothing I could do to stop it. The chief's daughters pretended to be concerned, dabbing at fake tears, but secretly they were relieved. If the prince died, there would be no wedding to test their appeal. Outside the guest house, Adunni stood with a crowd of worried villagers. She had heard about the prince's arrival and his sudden collapse. As she pushed closer, trying to see, her enhanced gift awakened. She could sense the illness radiating from inside the building, could feel death circling like a hungry vulture. She knew, with absolute certainty, that she could heal him, but she also knew what it would cost. Healing such a severe illness would worsen her appearance dramatically. The patches would spread across her entire body. She would become even more frightening to look at. Adunni's mother, who had followed her daughter into the crowd, saw the look on Adunni's face and understood immediately. No, her mother whispered, grabbing her arm. You cannot. They will kill you if you try to touch the prince. They already fear you. If you go near him, they will think you are trying to curse him, not heal him. Her mother was right. The villagers already blamed Adunni for every misfortune. If she touched the dying prince and he died anyway, or if she healed him but her appearance worsened, they would burn her as a witch. But Adunni had made her choice at the river. She had chosen the gift over beauty, service over acceptance. What good was her power if she let fear stop her from using it? I have to try, Mama, Adunni said softly. This is why I was given this gift. Before her mother could stop her, Adunni pushed through the crowd. The villagers gasped and moved away from her, creating a path of fear. The royal guards, seeing a diseased-looking girl approaching, raised their spears. Stop, they commanded. Come no closer. But Adunni kept walking, her heart pounding, but her steps steady. She had Yamoja's protection. No weapon could harm her now. I can heal him, Adunni announced, her voice clear and strong. Let me try. Laughter erupted from the crowd. The idea of this cursed girl healing anyone was absurd. You, Beezy sneered from behind her father. You would only make him worse. She carries disease herself. Kahind added, she will kill him faster. Remove her, the chief ordered the guards. But as the guards moved toward Adunni, something extraordinary happened. A wind rose from nowhere, swirling around her protectively. The guard spears could not touch her. When they tried to grab her, their hands passed through empty air. The crowd gasped. This was not natural. This was spiritual. An old woman in the crowd, one who possessed spiritual sight, suddenly cried out, Wait! Look at her forehead. She bears the mark of Yamoja. The water spirit has blessed her. Everyone fell silent. The mark was invisible to most, but those with spiritual sensitivity could see it glowing faintly on Adunni's skin, a symbol of divine protection and purpose. The chief hesitated. If Yamoja had truly blessed this girl, then perhaps it was more to her than they understood. And the prince was dying anyway. What harm could trying do? Let her through, the chief said finally, his voice uncertain but desperate. The guard stepped aside. Adunni walked into the guest house where Prince Akintunde lay unconscious on a mat, his breathing shallow, his skin gray. Death's shadow covered him like a blanket. Adunni knelt beside him, her hands trembling slightly. This would be the most powerful healing she had ever attempted. The illness was deep, ancient, almost spiritual in nature. It would take everything she had. She placed her hands on the prince's chest and closed her eyes. Immediately, she felt the sickness flowing from him into her. It was poison, darkness, corruption, all rushing into her body like a river of pain. Her skin erupted. The patches spread across her arms, her neck, her face. They darkened from brown to black, rough as tree bark. Her body shook with the effort. The villagers watching through the doorway gasped in horror. But beneath Adunni's hands, the prince's color began to return. His breathing deepened. His eyes moved beneath closed lids. Life was flowing back into him, purchased with Adunni's sacrifice. The healing lasted only minutes, but it felt like hours. Finally, Adunni collapsed beside the prince, exhausted and transformed. Prince Akintunde's eyes opened. For the first time in months, he felt no pain, no weakness, no shadow of death. He sat up easily, strength coursing through his body. The mysterious illness was completely gone. What happened? He asked, his voice strong and clear. His guards rushed in, tears of joy streaming down their faces. You are healed, your highness. Completely healed. The prince looked around and saw Adunni lying on the floor beside him, unconscious. Her skin now covered almost entirely in dark, rough patches. He understood immediately what had happened. This girl, this stranger, had saved his life at great cost to herself. Who is she? He demanded. Her name is Adunni, someone whispered. She is cursed, your highness. She has leprosy. But the prince, who now carried some of Adunni's gift inside him, a small residual connection from the healing, could see what others could not. He could see her soul, bright and pure, shining through the damaged exterior. He could see her sacrifice, her courage, her love for people who had given her nothing but hatred. She is not cursed, the prince said firmly. She is blessed, and she is the most beautiful person I have ever encountered. The villagers murmured in confusion. Beautiful? This diseased girl? As Prince Akintunde knelt beside Adunni, something miraculous began to happen. An old man pushed through the crowd, someone who had been present at the river but had remained silent until now. It was a village elder named Adeyemi who had witnessed everything from the forest shadows. I must speak, he declared. I saw what the chief's daughters did to this girl. They pushed her into Odo Alafia, trying to murder her as a sacrifice. But Umoja rejected their cruelty and blessed Adunni instead. The crowd erupted. Shock and outrage rippled to the gathered villagers. The chief stared at his daughters in horror as the truth poured out. At that moment, Umoja herself appeared, rising from the village while in a column of water. The villagers fell to their knees as the spirit spoke. Adunni's markings were a test. Umoja announced, her voice echoing. Not of her, but of you. You failed, but she never did. Now, because your hearts are finally opened, because you finally see her true worth, I release her from part of the burden. Light surrounded Adunni. Her skin began to heal, the patches fading but not disappearing entirely. Some remained as honored scars, proof of her sacrifice. But her true beauty, always present beneath, now shone clearly. She was radiant, not from perfection, but from purpose. Let all who see her know, Umoja proclaimed, that those who bear the marks of service are blessed, not cursed. True beauty is measured not in smooth skin, but in courageous hearts. The water spirit faded. The three sisters were banished from Abaddon, led away in disgrace while the village watched in silence. Epilogue. The sacred healer's legacy. The prince asked Adunni to marry him, not for her appearance, but for her soul. I want to spend my life with you because you are the most remarkable person I have ever met, he said by the river where she had nearly died and been reborn. Yes, Adunni said, feeling finally chosen for the right reasons. Together they built healing centers across both kingdoms, places where anyone could receive care regardless of their ability to pay. Adunni became known as a sacred healer. Her patches seen not as disease but as medals of honor, visible proof of the lives she had saved. Children who once ran from her now ran to her for healing. Mothers brought babies for her blessing. The village learned that those they rejected often carried the blessings they most desperately needed. And Adunni, who had been born under a full moon with marks that made people whisper, who had lived in isolation, who had chosen service over beauty and purpose over acceptance, finally understood she had always been exactly what the universe needed her to be. Not despite her gift, but because of it. True beauty, the village finally understood, was never about skin. It lived in courageous hearts, in love given freely, in service rendered regardless of personal cost. The kind that heals not just sickness, but the world itself, one courageous act at a time. The end.